So, hi everyone, and I'll be talking about robots that are used in real world and that are used for applications in real world and solving problems in real world. So, what I mean by real world is there are two different ideas with people when they think of robots, right? Either the robots are still stuck in labs and not used anywhere, or the robots that you see in sci-fi movies, which can come and kill you any day and any time. So we are not at both the ends. It's not robots are not stuck in the lab. Neither robots are as intelligent as humans yet. So we are somewhere in between, and robotics is still a very young field, which is very upcoming field, and yes, like we have a lot of work to do in this area. And I think Vishal already introduced me, so I won't go through all these pointers I had of my background. So here are some of the pictures and snippets from my projects that I worked on. I started working on robotics. Basically, I started initial introduction into robotics kind of things and getting into robotics during my bachelor's degree, and later on only during my master's degrees when I actually worked with real robots. And the first robot I worked with is this underwater robot. It's a amphibious robot that can actually walk on the land and also swim underwater. So this is a amphibious robot that was able to walk into the water, into the ocean, start swimming, collect data, and come back from the ocean and walk back on the shore. So that's kind of robot what I worked on initially, and then I switched gears during my PhD to work with underwater and surface vehicles. Surface vehicle, what I mean is like autonomous boats that run on surfaces. And I did get involved in building these robots, hands-on, like getting a lot of hands-on experience with electronics during my PhD mostly. And I have worked on algorithms part of the robotics. I am coming from completely computer science background, so my bachelor's degree, master's, and PhD, all three are in computer science. But then my specialization is in robotics because my theses, both for master's and PhD, were in robotics, and I was more interested in exploring robotics. So I worked with drones in forestry, mapping the forestry. This was some of the work I did in Philadelphia when I was at University of Pennsylvania. So, what is robotics basically? So, you might be seeing a lot of these sensing devices around you, right? Like you have all these cameras everywhere, you have internet connectivity. You might have heard IoT a lot of times. You have Alexa at home, multiple of you might have like Alexa connected to multiple devices in your house. You can just announce like Alexa, turn on the TV or turn off the lights or whatever you want it to do. And then you have multiple ways of sensing this world, and then you have multiple ways of assessing the data that is coming from all these sensors. That is, you're processing all this data, and you have a computer that is actually taking all this data and deciding what needs to be done. And then there is a way of controlling these devices. So Alexa takes your command, processes it, and then it identifies what is the command actually given, and then it actually has to control these devices, right? Like, so if you have to do something like that, then you'll send those control commands. So there's controls involved, and then there is human interface. So you need to actually understand what is human saying or show or display to interact with the human, something like that. So there's human interface. So all of these components come under robotics and automation. So when you say robotics and automation, you need all of these to work with each other. And any of these specific fields, like if you're working in any of these, they all fall under robotics and automation. And so there is sensing and actuation, where you build sensors, where you learn about materials, what kind of materials to be using for sensors, and also you learn about computing, how to actually use all the data that is coming. Data science comes into picture. And then how do you build control systems? How do you actually build controllers, controlling systems or reinforcement learning systems? And then also, how do you build interface for humans to interact with? Either you have a iPad interface, like a touch screen interface, or you have some command screen interface, or you have voice interface. What kind of interface? So all these come under robotics and automation. So let me just show you some of the examples of robots that you can see around us, and not exactly around us as of now, but in some years they will be around us. But these are some from research area. So robots come in various sizes. So you have microscopic robots. This is a robot that actually can be injected into a patient, and then this robot actually, it has medicine inside of it, and it actually goes to a particular kind of cell and releases the medicine only to that particular region. So what we can achieve with this is you can actually achieve very isolated and targeted medicine delivery. So how is this happening? There's a lot of material science involved here. So what kind of materials are susceptible to different chemical compositions of the body? So these materials actually change their shape according to the, they're very sensitive to the region that they're in or the surroundings that they're in. So depending on the acidity or the pH value, pH level of the solution, they change their shape. So that's how the medicine can be delivered. Either it can be delivered or something can be extracted from the body, things like that. And then there are robots of the size maybe a meter long robot, and these are like this is a, I think this is the cheetah robot, and these are basically used for payload carrying in hard terrains. So if you're wanting the payload to be carried in the mountainous areas, then how do you do that? Using robots instead of having humans carry that. And then there are huge mechanized automated systems. These are like JCB machines, which are very big, and these are actually can be automated, and they can be used for like doing much higher bigger tasks, or they can be used in mining, construction, or many other applications. So they come in various sizes is what the point was, and they operate in various environments. Like they can be operating in warehouses. Right now these are there everywhere. These are there in Amazon, these are there in actually even in Flipkart, and everything that you order online. So there is a warehouse where these things are getting picked up from. Like on Amazon, if I place an order for a bag of chips or let's say a book, then that those are basically placed in one of the racks, and then these robots go and pick and place those items into the racks and bring those racks to the delivery place and packaging place. And then there are robots in the kitchen which are getting used. This is an image from a research lab, but there are robots which are already there in some of the South Korean households, and these are actually trained to do some very basic but then very hard maneuvers, hand-like maneuvers. And then there are last mile delivery robots using drones. They're working in air. And then we have robots to do surgeries and in surgical systems, which are basically able to do much higher precise surgeries and with very minimal invasion. Like you don't have to cut open the patient, you can do it with very minimal small holes, and then you put these tools inside the body and continue the procedure. And then there are underwater exploring robots which can explore the whole ocean, and then there are spatial robots which are in space. You might already also recognize this rover. If you know which one this is, please type in the chat. And then there are robots used for agriculture in the farms to spray pesticides, for fertilizing, for localized fertilizers. Then they also work in different combinations. It's not like the robots always work individually. There are homogeneous teams. That is, when I say homogeneous, that means similar kind of robots working together. Or there are heterogeneous teams, that is different kinds of robots working together. And then there are swarms. Swarm means it's a huge size, huge group of robots. Anything bigger than 50 robots, you call them working together, you call them swarms. It's basically how bees work, or how birds do the murmuration in the sky, like how they go for eating grains and come back in a group. So any behaviors that replicate these biological systems are called swarms. And then we also see it's not only drones, humanoids, there are very different kinds of robots. Some are basically like modular robots. You have small tiny robots which actually merge together to make a bigger robot. And then there are exoskeletons. These are basically worn by humans actually, and that gives you more strength. Like if people who are working with high lifting jobs or heavy lifting jobs, then they can wear this, and then it makes the job much easier. Like weightlifting is done by the exoskeleton and the human is just doing the instructions. And then there are robotic wheelchairs which help, or prosthetics which help with all kind of rehabilitation, and also with the prosthetics will help with replacement of the arms or legs or whatever. And then there are origami robots or shape changing robots. There are soft robots which are very much used in surgical robots, and also for internal, like digestible robots kind of things, which can deliver medicines or localized medicines in humans. And also there are insect-like robots which can be used for sensing. You can just deploy thousands of these insect robots to go and sense the farm or any kind of forest or whatever you want to measure. So these are some very different kinds of robots that I showed you. Let me pick one small challenge, like which is very much necessary to address problems in the world. So let me pick one challenge and talk about how I have worked on some parts of it. Not, I won't claim that I have solved that problem, but this is one step towards the solution. So let's think of real world problems, like better understanding of forest fires. Why do forest fires span so much of area, or why do they spread so fast? Can we understand that, or can we understand how the infestation of locust is traveling in a region, and or can we actually localize the polluting sources for a lake or a river, and can we actually achieve precise agriculture, like minimal water usage, minimal power usage, but then achieve higher yields? Can we do any of these using robots, is what I have looked at, like mostly for environmental monitoring. And one of the very close to my heart problem is monitoring the coral reefs. So climate change is real. Like these are the pictures from 2014 and 15, when the water temperature increased just by 1 degree, and then because of temperature increase, the coral reefs were actually bleaching. What is a coral reef? Coral reef is a microorganism. It has like these grow in the ocean, and they cover a very huge region in the ocean, and they deposit some minerals, and then they build a skeletal structure, and on that skeletal structure they stay on the skeletal structure and consume the algae that sits on them, and then that's how they actually uh, become an ecosystem, and a lot of animals are dependent on coral reefs for their survival. So what happened is, because of the temperature increase in the oceans, all these algae coverage got removed, like algae left the corals, and that actually exposed these coral reefs, the skeletons of the corals out. That's how it looks white. And then once the algae is gone, they don't have food, and then the whole reef dies. So the one on the right side, you see it loses all its vibrant color, and then it's not of any use for organisms, because when they're actually covered with algae, and they're actually producing lot of oxygen for any animals, so there are a lot of animals hanging out and making it their home. But once they're dead, then it becomes like a rock, useless rock. So the prediction is, like, if the temperature increase goes on continuing as it is, then it might, like, we might lose all of our corals by 2050 or 2060, which is very dangerous, because coral reefs are rainforests of the oceans. They produce more oxygen in the ocean compared to what is the oxygen produced by rainforests on land, or Amazonian forests. So this will be a very bad situation, because none of the underwater organisms will have oxygen. So what can we do using robots for such scenarios? Like, can we actually monitor the health of these coral reefs, or any of these ecosystems, or any of these underwater water bodies, and make an assessment about the health of these ecosystems? That's what I have been interested in working on. So currently, can additional data help? Currently, how the data is collected. So if we want to monitor anything or understand anything about these ecosystems, we need to have data, right? So how is this data collected right now? One way is using satellites, but there are some issues that you can think of. One is basically this cloud coverage, so you don't get enough data, and also there's not enough coverage of the region itself, because the frequency of satellite visit is very low. And then the other way of data collection is these weather stations that are being deployed, but these are very localized and they are very sparse. we can't depend on them for complete coverage. So can we have these robotic systems that can actually go in the gaps in between these weather stations, or where the satellite is not covering well, and fill in the gaps between for us by collecting additional data? That's kind of what I am envisioning the robots that. So as an overview, as a big picture, like how to understand world better, like what is it that we want to actually understand, how can we understand the environmental phenomena? One pillar is to collect the data, and the second one is how do we represent the data? Like if I want to talk about this data to someone, how do I represent that, and how do I build correlations between data, right? So collecting data has again multiple questions: where to collect, what to collect, how to collect, things like that, right? Like I am more into how to collect samples and where to collect samples, and what to collect comes from expertise in the domain itself. And data representation, how do you want to represent this data, how do you want to present this to a third person, for a policymaker or whatever. And then correlation, like if I have multiple different sensors, like how do I correlate between these sensors? So what are the challenges in sampling in a flow field or in water, right? Like you can just go wear your shoes and just take a test tube in your hand, go collect water sample from there. But what are the issues with that? Like this is something, like this is the slide I ask students for questions, but then I don't think I have that uh, ability now. So I'll just go ahead with giving you the answer now. So collecting these data is time consuming and it's not precise. Like you cannot go to exact location every time to collect data. And also you cannot collect thousands of samples. You can collect only one sample per lake or something like that. And it's very hard to reach. Like it's not an easy job to do. Like no one wants to go and collect a sample in a sewage. No one wants to go and collect a sample where there are biohazards, right? It's not safe. It's also risky, like risky for life, risky for like even the people who are going and collecting data. So instead of that, can we actually send robots to do some of these jobs? And once you collect, then how do you actually build those maps, right? So these phenomena that we are talking about, they're changing temporally and spatially. When I say spatially, is like if you imagine a lake, then the data, there might be algae only on the coastal region or closer to the shore or bank of the lake, and then in the center there might not be algae. So the parameters might be very different, right? So we can't collect data from every point in the lake. Instead, we can have a robot going and collecting samples. And now we also want to collect samples which are spatially distinct, or we want to collect at same time at multiple locations. And also we want to collect it over multiple seasons to understand the data, right? So we can't do all of this with humans going and collecting data. So some ways people measure these things is real-time sensor buoys. Like you get these huge buoy as in it's a floating device with a lot of sensors put on it, right? And you just put it in one place. These are stationary. You just deploy it in one place, and then it keeps recording the data and sending it to the satellite, and you get the data. So these are similar to weather stations that I already mentioned. So these will be again localized. You get from one particular point, but then it's okay if you think it's okay to do that. But then these are very expensive and very hard to deploy. These cannot be deployed everywhere. These need to be deployed in big oceans. So then there are also small handheld sensors. These are like real-time handheld sensors. That is my student collecting data from one of the nalas nearby. And these are handheld sensors. You just deploy, like drop it in the water, and then the data is coming on the other end. You can collect it on your cell phone, and you can read or interpret that data however you want to. That is on the like real-time sensors, but these sensors are really expensive. So if I want to monitor this lake, let's take an example of monitoring a lake, right? And there is a lot of algae growing in this lake, and the algae is moving around in the lake. Then I want to actually take some actions, but I want to monitor it before taking an action, right? If I know how the algae is moving, I should be able to take an action. So now, how do I do that? With one way is I can have stationary sensors. I'll have deploy a lot of sensors around the lake, and then I use that data and model how the flow is happening or how the algae is moving over time. But then these sensors are expensive. I can't afford to put this in every lake around me, or every reservoir, or every river, right? So one thing we came up with is we built these cheap sensor nodes. So these are uh, very basic electronics with just Raspberry Pi. I don't know if you guys have used any of these. Arduino, maybe in your high school you might be using now, or you might have used it in your high school. And just putting some Arduino or Raspberry Pi, and then putting a GPS receiver on that, so that that can tell where this sensor node is, and then adding some sensors on it. These could be simple, like temperature, pH, and what is the pH of the water, temperature of the water, and turbidity of the water. You get these cheap sensors. You can actually build one of these by yourself, right? Like, you just need a battery, you need one compute as in Raspberry Pi or Arduino board, and then all you need is a couple of sensors. These sensors are very easily available on Amazon for very less price. So you can pick a couple of sensors. One can be pH, temperature, and maybe also you can pick what is this turbidity sensor. Turbidity sensor, you actually, all your washing machines have turbidity sensor. So these are very easily available, and they're very cheap also. So maybe you can look for these, and you can build one yourself. Like, you can buy a Tupperware which is waterproof, and then make these holes and just use hot glue gun to, so that the box is not leaking, and get all the wires coming out, and put this sensor, like make a sensor and put it in a bucket of water, and just add different add lemon juice and see if pH value is changing, or things like that. You can do your own sensor, like sensor node. And once you have tested everything, you can actually put it in one of the water bodies near you, like in a lake or something, and then you can actually monitor the lake. So this is what we did. We just built a very cheap sensor node, and we said, like, we will deploy these in the open space, right? We deployed this in ocean also, like. And then what is the advantage of this? Here I don't even, these are not anchored to one place. These are actually freely passively floating sensor nodes. So the advantage is, this is very less expensive, so it's easy to replicate, right? And also they're actually moving along with the currents. So the water is doing the job for us. It's taking the sensors out and it's moving them around, right? As it's flowing. So that way I don't even have to actuate anything on these sensor nodes. So now I am actually getting data, but I'm also getting data for different locations. It's not from one particular location. So that way I'm kind of covering the region. But one problem is, after some time, these might all flow and settle onto the shore, right? Like, or they can get stuck in one of the obstacles or some of the garbage dump in the lake. So how do we solve that? Like, what we did is, one approach we took is, okay, we have these cheap sensors. We'll take one boat, which is equipped with the costly sensor that I showed you before, and we will make that boat actually go and deploy these sensor nodes at the different locations. So once I deploy these sensor nodes, what I mean by deploy is just putting them in water, right? So once I deploy these sensor nodes, after 1 hour or 2 hours, because of the wind and the currents, they go and settle somewhere. Then I'll tell the boat to go and grab all those sensor nodes, get them back to some other location and drop them there. Again, they will do a different coverage, right? So here we have a very cheap sensor nodes which are doing these moving along and collecting data. And then we have a boat which is actually doing high quality data collection, but also doing this deployment problem. So we did deploy this in ocean, and the boat is controllable, and the drifters are difficult to control. So boat is actually taking these drifters and putting them into different locations, and also these drifters are telling the boat where to go and collect data. Like, if the drifter sees something nice, so that's what I had here. So if drifter sees something nice, then drifter will tell the boat, okay, there's something nice here, come over here and collect more data from here. So that's what is happening. So this is similar to how it happens in journalism, right? Like, it's not like journalists are present everywhere, but they do have some people who give tips. Like, if you have watched Sherlock Holmes series, right? There are people who call Sherlock and give him some tips about different locations. He has people everywhere. Like, he has beggars, he has washers and small store people who are actually taking money from him and giving him tips about what happened in the last 24 hours. So similarly, now we have these cheap sensor nodes which are going out in the world, and they will actually sense and they're not doing very good job of data collection. They're just taking few images and sensing and assessing them and saying like whether this region is good or bad. That's all. Once they say that, once if they say something is good here, then the boat will go and do a much better data collection from that region. So this is the system we deployed, and these are the high quality sensors. These are the expensive sensors I mentioned about, the water quality sensors on the boat. These are deployed on the boat, and these are the drifters that were deployed in the ocean. So these we used to monitor coral reefs, and we had very good results with it. So why is this problem so interesting for me? Like there is this, I don't know if you can understand explore exploit dilemma. So I'll try to give you an example. So let's say you go to a new city and you have 3 days there, and you are a foodie. Like I assume that most of you at this age should be foodies, so you should like food and want to try different kinds of food. So what would you do? Like, would you pick and choose different kinds of restaurants that you do initially, right? You want to explore, that is called exploration, because you want to pick and choose which restaurant to go to and taste food there. And then, like, after first day you went to different restaurants, let's say like 3 4 restaurants just to sample food. And then after that you liked particular food very much, right? At some point you will decide, okay, tomorrow I really liked food here, so I will come back tomorrow to have my dinner here or have my lunch here. So that is exploitation. Once you explored it, you want to exploit that information that, okay, this was good, I want to repeat or do it again, right? So similarly, that problem comes up in robotics too. Here I want the sensor nodes to explore or collect the data from throughout the lake. But also if I know there's one place where the algae is a lot, I have a lot of algae, then I want to collect more data in that region also, because I know maybe there's some pollution happening in that region, or I know there's someone dumping garbage there or something like that, right? So this explore exploit problem comes a lot, but also you need to there's a trade-off. You can't just decide on one restaurant and keep going there. If you have 10 days, you don't want to go for the same restaurant 10 days, right? You will explore sometimes, then you exploit. If you didn't find anything new, then you'll go to the same old restaurant, or if you found something, then you'll exploit that more, right? That's how explore exploit dilemma works. So that's a very good problem even in robotics or even in computer science. And then here the flow is unknown, like the ocean flow or the river flow is unknown. So wherever we deploy drifters, we don't know exactly where they will go. That is an interesting problem to solve. And we don't know the distribution of the phenomena that we're measuring. So if I'm measuring the coral reefs or the health of coral reef, I don't know beforehand like how the health is or how the coral is distributed. I need to go see and then only make an assessment. Okay, this is how the coral reef is distributed, or the algae is distributed, right? So those are some of the very interesting problems that are still research questions, and we are still working on them. So here is one of the videos, which is a very cool video, I feel. So here you see there is a drifter floating here with a handle on top, and then there's this boat which goes and actually grabs the drifter and takes it away and puts it in a different location. This is a very short snippet, I have put it here. Yeah. So also drifters are only controllable at deployment, like only deployment time I can control. I don't know where they will go, and robot movement is very expensive. I don't want to just send robot everywhere, so I need to optimize a lot of these things. So all these problems become very interesting, even algorithmically, right? It's not just hardware building. So how did we solve this problem of like environmental monitoring, at least in this particular problem, in this particular solution? Is we started with building some hardware, right? We started with building very simple a drifter, which you can actually build at home. I would suggest you to do that. Also, there are some students from YCL. Maybe you can try building one of these sensor nodes for your YCL project if you're interested. Yeah. And then we actually designed a boat and deployed the boat along with these sensor nodes. So this is building some hardware, so I had to get some experience with the hardware, and then I had to actually design algorithms such that the boat will only go to interesting regions instead of going to every region in the world, right? And once I do that, I also need to, once I collect data, I need to build some model or understand some what's happening in this world, right? Like So if I see some data like this or represent some data like this means this is pH of a particular lake. So there's pH, high pH on some regions and low pH on some other regions. That means there is something underlying that is changing, right? So to understand what is exactly changing, then I need to also understand the domain. I need to talk to marine biologists, or I need to have background in ecology or marine biology to understand that. So what I'm bringing all of this into is, so as engineers, there are multiple fields of engineering, right? There's mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, materials engineering, aerospace, computer science, a lot of these engineering, right? So robotics kind of fits in the center. Robotics and cyber physical systems comes under in the center of all of these. So anyone working in robotics and cyber physical systems should have experience in all of these fields. Like you have your fingers wet in all of these fields, right? And you need to have some experience. So getting so here I'm bringing you to the program that we have at Plaksha. So Plaksha gives this undergraduate degree, BTech degree in robotics and cyber physical systems, and this is, I think, one of the first in India, at least, giving undergraduate degree in robotics and cyber physical systems. And the beauty of this program is, like, you are getting experience not only in just the hardware, but you're getting mechanical design experience, and also you're getting learning experience from artificial intelligence or learning systems. Like how is computers working, how do computers on the robots make these decisions. And then you're also working on controls, like how do you actually use those computer algorithms that you write to control the robots, or how do you actually design the algorithm such that they're able to control the robot better or efficiently, something like that, right? And also we also look at materials, like what kind of materials should be used to design your robot. So all of these come under robotics, and robotics is kind of tied into multiple of these fields. So it's a very multidisciplinary field, and basically there's another representation. This is basically from data from 644 publications, like research publications, and someone put this together in one of their research papers. And as you can see, like higher the, like bigger the size of the bubble, then that means more number of keywords in that particular area. So many of them are under robotics here in the recent trend. This is from 2004 to 2020 papers published in 2004 to 2020, and multiple of them you can see, like there's human robot interaction, where like there's robots, social robots, how robots behave in social environments. And then there's simulation, how do you simulate a robotic environment, or how do you simulate a flow field or mechanical field. And then there's a lot of learning, machine learning and artificial intelligence involved, and medically assisting robots, surgical assisting robots. And then there is equipment design and biological and bio-inspired systems. So these are all different fields that are very much linked with robotics. And once you have something you want to work in robotics, you'll kind of end up touching all these smaller bits and pieces. That's what I wanted to bring you with, uh, give you an idea about. So especially here in Plaksha, we have multiple centers. Out of them, like 3 centers have a big presence of robotics in them. So I'm part of these 3 centers, which where I'm doing robotics as part of these 3 centers. So one we have is Center for Sustainable Precision Agriculture. So here we are actually uh, designing robots for agriculture, or designing algorithms to collect data for agriculture and assess the data coming from agriculture robots. And then we are working with the Center for Water Security, where we are actually working on building robotic systems to monitor lakes, monitor rivers, and building data models and predicting how the data is changing over time, or how the whatever human activities are impacting the river or impacting the lake. And then we also have Center for Equitable and Personalized Healthcare, where we are I am involved in these 2 projects, where we are building a social robot, the robot that can actually go to a social environment or go to a hospital and help around by delivering things in the hospital, or how do you navigate when there's a crowd, things like that. And also I'm working on this surgical robot, which can actually, this is a more computer vision problem, where we are solving we are creating a segmentation of organs, so identify different organs and put overlay, like how you see a green overlay on top of this particular artery. These overlays will help surgeons in identifying and not or being careful around these organs. Like artery is a very delicate part. If an artery is cut during an operation, during a surgery, then it's a very bad thing. Like it's hard to stop bleeding. So those are a couple of things I have been working on. So this is kind of last but one slide of my talk, and here we have. I'm just showing like different kinds of technologies that we are working in robotics lab, particularly in Plaksha. And we have people working on AVs, UGV. AV is nothing but automated, like autonomous underwater vehicles. You have unmanned aerial vehicles. We have unmanned ground vehicles, and we have medical robots. People working on medical robots. So these are some of the areas that we work on, or the robots that we work with. And then we also have collaborations with a lot of research labs throughout the world, and also in India. And we have collaborations with even industrial labs, like TCS Research is doing a lot of work in robotics, and then Samsung Research is doing work in robotics. So we have collaborations with them at Plaksha. So these are some of the venues at Plaksha. And then this is the RCPS faculty for you. Like all these are faculty members at Plaksha under RCPS. So you can reach out to any of them if you have any questions or any queries about the RCPS program. And yeah, I think I'll stop there and ask any questions. Yeah,
Uh, Hello. Thank you so much,
yeah,
Professor, for the insightful
yeah.
conversation
Thank you.
and the
Thanks.
presentation. I'm sure the audience has have a lot of questions. I would
Yeah,
request everyone to please put your questions in the Q&A box, whether it's related to the presentation that Professor shared, or with respect to YCL competition, or with respect to the UG BTech admissions or processes. Please either feel free to put your questions in either in the Q&A box, or you can additionally raise your hands, and we can let you ask a question to the professor itself. Professor, meanwhile, I have a very
yeah.
quick question to ask,
Should I
and that
stop
is,
sharing or should I continue sharing?
we
I can
can
stop
stop,
sharing.
Professor. If required, we can
Sure.
just go back
Yeah, I
to a
can share
slide.
again if needed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. So I
Yes.
have a very quick question, which was
Yeah, please.
so one of the students, when we were presenting in Calcutta to one of the top schools, had asked that the character in Marvel, the Iron Man, will it be considered an exoskeleton?
The Iron Man.
Yeah,
Yeah, I can think of building an exoskeleton. Something. It is an exoskeleton, right? Because it's a person wearing it.
yeah,
You
and
can
also
think
it
of
has an
person
like
wearing
an
it, and it has
outer
all the
shell.
capabilities that can help you do something which normal humans can't do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can call Iron Man an exoskeleton.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay, great.
I
Uh,
haven't thought of like how exactly or where exactly it's stored and how it's coming. Like, yeah. Sure.
okay. Uh, we have a few questions from the students in the chat box, and I'll just take them up, starting from. So this somebody has asked, Vivek has asked, how do people make robots? How do people make robots in labs as small as a cell? So I think what he wanted to ask is it how smallest can be a robot that humans can make and which can perform tasks?
At least there are like right now we have micrometer size robot, and
Okay.
these are basically like these are again coming to material science, right? Like basically you have these materials which actually work differently in when activated with different concentration of the liquid or that they're operating in, or they can also be activated using a laser pulse. So some of the research has been like they devise these micro robots such that if you have a leg on the robot, like let's say there's a piece of a square piece with four legs, and then if I actually trigger one of those legs with the laser beam, like a laser beam, then it actually folds, basically, right? So how it's working is these laser will excite these electrons, and that will actually ionize the surface on the on the surface plate on the robot, and then that will attract a different ion or different electrons from the solution itself. So that will actually bend the leg. So using such kind of motions, you can actually make the robot move. So there is some, as of now, all the micro robots, they need some external, uh, the environment should provide some way to actually change their shape, right? You can't have a automated robot at that level, but these are basically controlled from outside. So another thing is also controlled using external magnets. So there are magnetic fields that are used to control or make these robots navigate in your body. So those are a couple of ways that these are done.
Okay. We have a question from Laksha. He asks, he's interested in renewable energy and environmental engineering with AI. Which
Okay.
field would you recommend? So, does robotics, I believe, has options in all these aspects?
Yeah, at least like the faculty who are in energy center, that they're all from RCPS. Like most of them are from RCPS. So couple of them, like one of the major areas is flow field and like mapping the urban landscape or the heat transfer in the urban landscape. That has been being done, and that is basically needs you to understand flow dynamics and fluid mechanics. So to understand that, those are the topics which are taught in robotics courses. So I would suggest like RCPS would be the closest for those
Yeah.
topics. Yeah.
Okay. Uh, we have a question from Pranit. He says, I have built a system of farming robots
Vishal,
that.
there is a lot of
Yeah.
disturbance on your mic, I think.
So there's another question of I have built a system of farming robots that monitor the quality of soil. They also add moisture and fertilizers to maintain the quality. My robots can plow the soil and add seeds. Lastly, the robots can optically identify the weed and remove the seeds after the plants have grown. Uh, can I send the video to you? Definitely, you can
Of
send it
course,
to
please
us
send it.
any sense. You can
That's
also,
pretty cool.
if you want, please. I guess if you have heard about our competition by CL, please participate. You can register yourself with a team member, and I guess we have Priyanka here. Priyanka, if you would like to just give the audience an intro about the YCL competition to those members who are unaware, and let us know what we are doing, what we are planning to do.
Sure, sure. Thank you, Vishal. It was amazing hearing you from you. And
Thanks.
hope with students have and parents have joined have gathered a lot of information about robots and robotics. This is most talked about, when we talk about technology in this age. For young students, as grade 8 to 12, we are currently running the Young Creators Week Challenge. And this challenge, we, motivate you to not be comfortable with, things that bother you in your surrounding. So be observant, look into your surrounding, look for problems that you think are solvable. And since you're already doing some kind of, learning some kind of a tech, a software or a hardware also in your school, you should apply it in your real world and find out a solution to it. So it could be a very low tech solution or a high tech solution, but try and solve it is what we want you to do. And we're empowering you with these faculty webinars and interaction with faculties wherever it's required. So we're also hosted certain several previously, and now this is the one where it relates with how you can solve a actual real world problem of underwater coral reef, that kind. And also we have several others coming up. So this is about Young Creators League, and it's completely not chargeable, no fees attached at any stage. We invite applications or submissions through our webpage, challenge webpage, which is youngcreatorsleague.in. And you just have to register yourself. We require minimum of two students to pair up a team and submit your work together with a problem and solve come to a solution. And the best 50 or top 50 will be awarded at Plaksha. They'll be exhibiting at Plaksha University with the founders and faculty members judging them further for top 5. So that's the funnel we have. And all the very best. In case you have any query regarding this, you may always can reach out to us. Yeah, so maybe we can share the details later.
Can we also put it in the chat, Priyanka? If we can share the how to register for YCA, maybe it'll be a good idea.
Sure, sure. Yeah,
Just the website link would be good. Yeah.
right.
Uh, Thanks, Priyanka.
Also, Vishal,
We yeah.
sorry to
No,
interrupt.
please go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I just saw a question on a program they're asking, a
Mm-hmm.
module we can, have, they have for 6 through 12. So we are running a summer school program, which is called Young Technology Scholars Program. And that's for this age group, high school kids, grade 9 to 12. And that's a kind of a module wherein it's complete residential for 2 weeks. Students get engaged into, these kind of sessions, one of these being in robotics, sustainability and all that stuff. And then they pair up and they build a, tech model by themselves. So that's the whole thing. And we will be hosting sessions for that specifically in January onwards. But that's the program Plaksha has for high school kids. Thank you.
Yeah. We also have another question from Shaurya regarding solo participation for YCL. So I guess that has been answered. At least two members are required for participation. At least a team of two members would be needed.
I think
Uh,
Yeah,
Shaurya has one more question.
yeah.
He says, I have made a prototype to detect drowsiness in real time while driving using ML. That's pretty
oh,
cool.
wow.
How do I take it
Yeah.
further? Okay. Yeah. So this is a problem which many people are working on, like many research labs are working on actually. I think Microsoft Research is working on a problem like this. So you should definitely look up like Microsoft Research. I mean, online, just search for Microsoft Research and driver drowsiness or things like that. There, you should get some sources from there. And also, you can actually reach out to people, like find people and write an email. People are open to respond, and if you don't get response, just be persistent and reach
Hmm.
out multiple times. And also, like, try to build the system, and when you have the system working, like, make some recordings and keep those recordings ready whenever you're talking to people, so that you can show that the system worked and why it worked. And also, how do you test these systems, like, how do you think it is robust? Like, try it with 10 different drivers, not with one driver, and say like this is working. And also, because not only 10, you should try it with more, but I'm just saying, to start with, you should try with 10 at least. Yeah. So those would be
Yeah.
the couple of things that you should start with. And also, when you have these results, like, create a web page or like a GitHub page. It's very easy to do all this at right now. I think you guys have resources to do that. Like, you can do any of these online and create a GitHub page and put those results there. And yeah, look up on that. Yeah.
Professor, I have a personal question. Can I go ahead?
Yes, Milind, please.
What a great webinar. I'm
Hey,
thinking
thanks.
about coral reefs in a different way now. So, I mean, you were talking about making your own robot, right? So, if you could just tell, I mean, how much would it cost to make? I know it just costs about 500 rupees for a Raspberry Pi. But what about the other things like the
No,
Arduino
Raspberry
chips?
Pis are expensive.
Really? I think it was for 500 to 1000. No?
No, Raspberry Pi is costing 4,500 something.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Maybe
yeah,
I
yeah,
was
yeah.
thinking of a bulk order.
Arduinos are cheaper.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
All
yeah.
right. What about the other sensors? If you could just say that, how much would it cost if I want to make a DIY
Okay.
thing of my own? Yeah.
Some of the electronics are like not very expensive. Like Raspberry Pi, I told you, would be the expensive part in that system I showed you, right? Like,
Okay.
if you want to build this simple system like thrusters, I got some motors. I am trying to build these small boats for
Mm-hmm.
deploying sensors, and these the motors I got costed me like couple of hundred, like 300 each. And if I have two thrusters, so that's fine. And then you can use a Tupperware box. So things are like, the structural things are much cheaper in India to get, because you can
In
use
India?
many things, like you can
Yeah.
get many things that are easy to work with. And electronics, like if you're getting, like, Raspberry Pi is expensive, so that is around 4,500, let's say. So maybe a small board that if you want to build, and like with two thrusters, two motors and all, like, it shouldn't cost you more than 7,000, I think, with
What
Raspberry
about the
Pi. But
camera?
if you do it just with Arduino, if you build it just with Arduino, you should be able to do it even cheaper. Just with Arduino, you can build it for 4,000 maybe. 3 to
What about
4,000
the
along with
camera?
sensors. I'm telling you.
Okay.
Sorry,
What about a camera?
you do get cheaper cameras.
You get?
Yes,
Okay.
you
So,
get
I mean,
cheaper cameras.
with the 4500 you're saying would be with the camera, right?
Raspberry Pi.
Yeah.
It
No,
depends on the
it doesn't
model
come with the
again.
camera. Yeah. So you have to put a
Yeah,
camera,
the
right?
older models you can get it with camera. Yes.
So definitely if you're going for a coral reef
4500 I'm
exploration,
telling is the most latest model. So yeah.
okay. Okay. So camera definitely if you're going for a coral reef exploration.
So I think you can, yeah, you can actually build one.
I've seen a few. I mean, they're really beautiful, and I mean, obviously they need to be
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
preserved. And, yeah, that's
Yeah.
all.
Cool.
So, Professor, we have a few questions about the outcomes after the RCPS program. I mean, the questions are on the job prospect side, but I would also
Yeah.
like you to answer on the outcomes in terms of what higher education opportunities are available,
Yes.
as well as Plaksha, since we offer a lot of doing minors as an option in each, along with each majors, what
Yes.
options would go very well along with the RCPS program, if you can just explain it to us.
Yeah. So RCP, if you're picking RCPS as a major, then there are, you can do minor in any of the other three, but the very close to each other are RCPS and CSAI for sure, because there are a lot of overlap with all the AI courses that you do. Machine learning,
Yeah.
deep learning, all those are very much needed, and reinforcement learning is another one.
Yeah.
And either you can do minors in CSAI or you can also do minors in BSc, because
Yeah.
BSc and RCPS has a lot of overlap with material science, and there's also bioinformatics and diagnostic technologies. Those are very much related. So those are diagnostic technologies taught by me and Sunita, were both in RCPS but then taken by multiple of bioscience engineering students. So those are some of the options. uh, Robotics and data science, it's a possibility, but I haven't seen anyone doing that yet. I think basically the kind of data I collect, and I need a lot of data scientists on my team to actually go through and understand the data that we collect and then come up with algorithms. Like game theory is a very big part of robotics. Game theory is
Yeah.
part of CS, and game theory is also part of data science. So these are some of the things which are kind of very, I think at Plaksha, the all four streams we have are very interdisciplinary.
Yeah.
So that's another advantage. So minor wise, that is the thing, and
Yeah.
prospects wise, at least as of now, the RCPS students that we have had until now, most of them seem to be oriented towards research and higher studies.
Yeah.
That's what we have seen, and they've gotten very good opportunities to do their internships. A couple of them are doing in UCSD, University of California, and a couple of them visited Singapore, SUTD, Singapore University of Technological Design. And so, yeah, there are a lot of opportunities to uh, get into research, and also many are working in ISC, like for their internships and things like that. ISCs and IITs for internships, and that's how you basically build your profile, right? Like during your undergraduate days. And we also have the biggest space on campus for robotics, so we will have a lot more robotics happening in the next 1 or 2 years. So that's something good thing, I think. And other than that, like industry wise, industries for robotics is coming up, but
Yeah.
not there yet in India. Elsewhere, the industry is much more ahead for robotics. But one thing I wanted to say is all the jobs for AI are also open for robotics, because you're taking all the AI courses along with robotics courses. But CSAI students are not taking anything in mechanics, or they're
Yeah.
not taking anything in mechanical engineering or fluid dynamics. So they cannot qualify for uh, any job that is calling for fluid dynamic understanding or thermodynamic understanding. So, but then you are also taking AI courses like machine learning, deep learning, reinforcement learning. So those will already be in your profile, so those will look attractive for any AI hiring companies. So there's a lot of overlap with CSAI. That's something I want to highlight. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Professor. We have another question from Shaurya, which is, do we accept SAT score for engineering at Plaksha? So yes, Shaurya, we do accept SAT along with class 12th board scores, JE mains, as well as ACT. So if you want to get a firm offer from us, you have to submit at least one of these four examinations, and yes, SAT is one of them. But with SAT, we only consider the maths component, not the English one. So you can submit your math SAT scores with us, and that would be considered for your application evaluation.
I would like to add, Vishal, that SAT is not the, first option that we recommend. It's usually a JE or a board score, because SAT doesn't have grade 11, grade 12 calculus in it. So, it needs
Yeah.
to be a really good SAT score for us to consider. And I think boards and JE is the option that should be the first preference.
Yes.
Either of the two, yeah.
Sure.
I
Uh,
think someone asked for my email. It's available on the website. Please just go to Plaksha faculty and you can find me there. My email should be there.
sure.
And also, I think someone asked, like, can robots do surgery alone, like without any human intervention? Okay, not yet. I don't think that we want to do that. Like, surgeons have really high skills, and I don't. Also, I am not of the opinion that humans should be eliminated from the workforce. I feel like robots should enable or make the humans better at doing their job instead of eliminating humans, and that's how we can integrate better in the society also. And also, eliminating human completely, I don't know if I'll go to such a surgeon without human in the loop. So I don't think that is there yet, and I don't think anyone is working towards that either. Mostly what people are working on is like, how do you make it easier for human surgeons to make precise surgeries instead of having any faults or things like that. Yeah. Also minimal invasive.
Professor, we have a project at the campus with students working with the government, I guess the sugarcane project. Uh,
Yeah.
if you can just tell us about, we have a question regarding that about involvement and advancement of robotics in the field of agriculture and healthcare. So we already have a project
Yes.
in the field of agriculture. If you can tell us about what students are actually trying to do, what are they implementing, and how are they
Yeah.
trying to like enhance the efficiency?
Yeah. So there are a couple of teams working on different projects. So one of them is actually Professor Shashank works majorly on this field, and also Professor Anupam Sopti. So they are working, like, Anupam is looking at like remote sensing, basically using satellite data to assess how the yield is, how the stress the crop is, things like estimating stress, estimating yield using satellite imagery. And then Shashank and his team is working on using drone imagery for doing assessment of yield and crop quality and crop stress. And also they are working on actually building sensors for quality of the sugarcane, like how good the sugarcane is or when it should be harvested.
Yeah.
Also, like how fast should the sugarcane be taken from the field to the sugarcane industry or factory, things like that. And so there are a couple of students also working on building ground vehicles to go between the crop and then take measurements or take leaf samples, take soil samples, things like that. Yeah.
Great. Uh,
Thanks.
if we are expecting a few more questions, students can please share it in the chat box or Q&A. We'll just take final one or
Akash,
two
what do you mean by
questions.
can robot interpret human?
I guess if they
Oh,
can
what is the
read human faces or maybe our expressions, if I
interpret,
correctly.
as in like emotions, faces, or even like think ahead and like interpret their actions, like future actions? Yeah. Oh, okay. I mean, it's a people are working in cognitive science and robotics, interface of robotics and cognitive science. So I haven't read anything on like interpret humans directly, but then there are systems that, like, how one of your friends mentioned, like detecting sleepiness while driving or things like that. Those can be interpreted. Emotions can be interpreted.
I
Those
think we
are
have a
existing for a
project
while
going
now.
on, right? Professor Siddharth and
Siddharth is
Professor
working on
Dr.
those.
Brenner
Yeah.
are working on,
So
but
those
it's
are
a
there.
CLCI project, yeah.
Yeah, it's I think CTLC and CSA. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's basically yeah, you can interpret some emotions, but again, like, I don't understand the question completely. Like when you say interpret
Yeah.
human, so facial expression, yes, but actions, I don't think so. Maybe some action prediction, like if a human is moving along with the robot, like there are work which is happening more like social behavior. So I work with students on social navigation, where if your robot is actually walking in airport or in a mall, then how should the robot behave such that it doesn't annoy the people or doesn't scare the people or things like that, or doesn't come in the way of people. Like what is the social behavior? And this social behavior is also very localized geographically, right? Like someone might consider a robot coming and touching them cool, but maybe someone in Japan would get annoyed if a robot comes very close. So things like that. So how do you actually build those social norms into the behavior of robots? That is there. That lot of work is going on in that. If you consider that as interpreting humans, how
Exactly.
do you see advancements in robotics impacting fields like
Uh,
medicine and
yeah.
I think my talk was kind of talking about that.
Exactly.
So yeah,
Maybe we
let
can just
alone.
take another question. Somebody is using a robotic vacuum cleaner in their home.
Okay.
So they want to know it's working. What principles is it working on? How exactly does it function? So we had seen
Oh,
a product from one of the robotic companies. I'm not sure if it's Orangewood or someone. They had a circular robot which would just scan the whole screen and with very good accuracy, they would clean the entire floor. I guess this was a project mentioned by Dr. Ritesh.
I don't know if Orangewood is doing. I am not sure if Orangewood is doing that. But there are multiple
Yeah,
companies working on vacuum cleaning robots, and vacuum cleaning robots have been around for almost a decade now. So there are multiple ways they do. One is random walk. They start with random walk and then build a map for your house, and then once they have the map, then they kind of do a lawnmower pattern. Lawnmower is as in like how you do the lawn mowing, right? Like, or how someone else does the lawn mowing. They go, or how do you actually plow the field? That's basically
exactly.
the idea how robots do. And there are multiple intelligent behaviors that they call are included, but I don't think there's a lot of intelligence happening there. There's set kind of conditions or set kind of instructions that will be executed in line. Yeah.
Sure.
But then building a
Uh,
map or like exploring the map, that would be hard part,
okay.
which is still intelligent. Yeah.
Okay. So I guess we are more or less done with the questions that we had. If you're not expecting any more questions, I guess we are quite done for the today's webinar. Professor, thank you so much for your time. It was
Yeah.
very
Thanks.
insightful,
Thanks, Vishal.
quite informative. I'm sure
Yeah.
students have learned a lot. Priyanka, do you have anything to add? Maybe just address the audience if you want to share something about the competition or about the ITS.
Yeah, thank you so much, Vishal, for hosting this up, and thank you, Sandeep, for the session.
Thanks.
We learned
Yeah.
a lot. I feel that we learned a lot, and definitely, I see some queries on YCL if they can
Yeah,
participate in single, question, and more queries on even some hardware or things like that. So, whatever the query in particular about your project or the team size, you can mail us anytime. So when you visit the Young Creators website, as mentioned in the chat, you can just simply go at the email to contact us. It's Young Tech Scholars at the rate, and you can always ask us specific queries there. The tech challenge young creators week is closing by November 30th. So we would appreciate your submissions to be done before that. We have this holiday season to gear up and complete your submission. Good. Yeah. Thank you.
sure. Thanks, Priyanka. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining today's session. And
Yeah.
students, all the very best. Please enjoy your festive season. Have fun. All the best for your exams. For the competition, YCL, if you have participated, if not, please register and participate. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
your
Thanks for
time today.
joining,
If
and
you want,
it
yeah,
would be great to hear back from you,
yeah.
or from some of you at least, like, or meet some of you at some point.
Yeah, please. We'll be sharing a feedback form very soon after this webinar with the students and the attendees. Please fill this up. It helps us improve our future webinars. And also, if you want the recording of the session, please write to apply ID. I'm sharing the email ID in the chat box. Please write it to us and we'll share the recording with you. Thank you so much, everyone.
I'm also putting my email just for someone who
Yep.
asked it. So
Thanks, Professor.
thank you. Thanks, Vishal. Thanks, Priyanka.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank
Thanks,
Have a
Priyanka.
nice evening. Bye.